Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kiran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there. So I'm so jealous of him being at that point where you're looking up the mountain, kind of thinking, you know, it's a daunting mountain to climb, but it's great to have it in front of you to conquer, you know. So I'm jealous of that. So it's another thing that's important to sit and practice the process of enjoying playing for playing's sake, to remind yourself, you know, that's one of the main reasons you do it. Greetings, welcome back to the Guitar Smarts podcast. Remember, if you're an everyday gigging guitarist, this is the podcast for you. Happy New Year to all our listeners. It's great to be back, and it's great to start our third year of the Guitar Smarts podcast with this episode. We've got lots planned for this year, but we're starting off with a post-Christmas catch-up, a chat about the things Santa brought us for Christmas, and of course, a little discussion on the good habits we want to instill in our guitar playing lives this year. Housekeeping, remember to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast app. This way, you will get alerts when a new podcast is released, and that means you won't miss the next show. Use the LinkTree in the description of this show to get to our Buy Me a Coffee page, if you do feel generous, and links to some of our Spotify playlists from previous episodes. Come and see us on the socials too, especially on the Guitar Geek Hangout page on Facebook, where you can interact with Kiran and myself and many other guitar nerds like us. And if you really want to support us, use the links in the Linktree to leave us a rating or a review. This is the best way to support us, and it really does help us to grow. Happy New Year to you. We hope you have a great year ahead. Look forward to bringing more of the Guitar Smarts podcast to you this year. That's about enough from me. Let's get to it. Happy New Year, dude. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Happy New Year to you too.
Fantastic.
2023, eh? Wow.
God, unbelievable. 2023. I mean, we're nearly a quarter of the way into this century.
I know.
That's madness. Kind of actually, have I? Yeah, so lived, well, actually, no, this has happened. I'm only just realising this has occurred. I've lived more in this century than the last.
Oh.
And that'll be the same for you now, won't it? Just about.
Right? Almost.
What year are you born?
Almost 79.
Well, yeah, that's so you have 21 years in that century, and now you're into 23rd. Yeah, so
true. That's scary, isn't it? I still remember partying on the turn of the millennium.
Me too.
That night, and thinking this is the dawning of a new era.
That's right.
I mean, nothing happened. The world didn't explode. Computers didn't melt and
the millennium
self-combust like everyone predicted. That was 23 years ago now. Wow, mate, how time flies.
How time does fly. Crazy,
how are you feeling? You're sounding a little bit hoarse. Have you suffered from this bug that? Well, I say bug. Yeah. It is more than a bug. It is
been rough. It's been rough.
It's either horrible flu-like symptoms or basically COVID or something in between that feels incredibly like COVID but doesn't come up on any of the COVID tests as COVID. It's horrible. It's horrible, right?
Basically got that. Me and Lucy have just had that for at least the last week. Yeah. And now it's just kind of a lingering but fairly painful cough that we can't seem to shift.
The crunchy cough.
For a few days, it was just it was definitely more like flu than anything else, because I just remember having a couple of days of just bad dreams when I was sleeping, and I remember having proper flu when I was in high school. I've only had it once before. Because a lot of people think they've got flu when they've really just got a bad cold.
They've just got a cold, right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like when I had flu once, it was nothing like having a cold. It was like a separate illness altogether that landed me in bed for a week. And all I remember is just going in and out of sleep and just having the weirdest
being delirious with fever. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit like that for a couple of days of just kind of feeling rough and achy, but mainly it was kind of just a bit of delirium for a couple of days. But glad to be on the back end of it now, and I feel okay. Just like I said, it's just a lingering cough that's just sapping all my energy and feeling a bit, meh. But
a bit meh. Well, I tell you what, mate, you're doing better than I was at that stage of it, because we had it in our household the couple of weeks before Christmas. 2 weeks before Christmas it came on. I remember we were going to record a podcast episode, and while I was about a week into it, and I just said to you, mate, I can't stop coughing, and I feel a bit grotty. But moreover, there was no way I could have recorded a podcast. It would have been a nightmare for editing because I was just coughing continuously and horribly. So you're doing well. But what I would say is it's taken me a good 3 weeks to fully clear it. Obviously, it got progressively better week on week. I wasn't in the acute stages of it for 3 weeks, but it's been a nasty one. And now coming back to work and seeing friends and stuff after the kind of holiday break, I'm being given stories from everyone, left, right, and centre, around how everyone's suffering from this. It's like everyone's had it. Everyone has in some way had their holiday season interrupted by this, either directly them or family members. And I know a few people of our age, like we're not ancient, but we're not spring chickens anymore, who've been hospitalised by it, who've had to go to A&E because of breathing issues and stuff. So,
wow. I feel very fortunate not to have got it that badly. But I can see why people would struggle with it for sure, breathing wise. I mean, we've been so wheezy the whole time, but we seem to be coming through it okay. Which
you sound at least an octave lower in your...
yeah, I know.
It's kind of sexy.
Maybe I'd be thankful for that,
Yeah, be thankful for that. Do all the podcast voiceover pieces like now while you've got this husky tones, and
that's
then
a good idea.
It'll just rumble
Greetings.
through. Greetings, podcast listeners. Like and subscribes will just go massively through the roof because people's bodily parts will be vibrating to your dulcet tones.
Oh no, I sound a little bit like a duck when I'm laughing. I'm hearing myself on my headphones and you're like, this is what it's like.
Well, dear listeners, if you're like Matt or like me and have suffered with this illness over the holiday season, hope you're feeling better. Hope you're on the mend. It doesn't last, but it does last for a while. So pace yourself. Pace yourself. It'll take a while.
I'm just checking behind you as well, as I usually do, just to see if there's anything new. And I think you've had a bit of a rearrangement of your guitars on the wall. Possibly. The eldest lad, who's 9 years old but going on like 15, he's like monstrously tall at 9. And I think I told you about this before Christmas. He has been playing this half-size little Strat copy thing that I bought him. He's been having lessons for the last couple of years, but in the last few months, he's really started clicking with the instrument. Forgive me if I've already told you this story, but there was a moment just before Christmas, about end of November time, where he was sitting trying to figure out this particular phrasing on this piece of music that he likes. And he had the tab that his guitar teacher had written out, which was spot on. But he hadn't practiced the piece enough. So his fingers were doing an approximation of what was on the tab, but the rhythmic nature of it wasn't quite right. And it was not quite clicking. And he was kind of looking at me and he was kind of like, it doesn't sound right. And so I said, okay, I know why it doesn't sound right. And I made a couple of little tweaks and adjustments with him. And almost instantly, he then replayed it. And I got to witness something that I will never forget in my life. And I'm not sure he will forget it, because the look on his face told me everything. Yeah. He replayed it, and I saw that realization on his face in real time for the first time, where what he had as the melody in his head of this song that he'd heard a million times was then going through his fingers, but then creating this loop back where he could hear it coming out of the amp and going back into his ears, and the two things matched, and it clicked, and he was like, that's it. Now, we as guitarists, right, when we're learning pieces or
frantically prepping for a dep gig or just trying to bluff our way through something. We'll do this like 1,000 times a day, right? Where we'll go, yeah, got it, close enough, that's it, that'll do. Or we'll nail it and work on a piece until it's exactly perfect. But to see somebody do this for the first time in their life, it's just made this huge springboard effect for him in terms of going back and revisiting all his tabs. And it's also given him that confidence now to go, I can play guitar and I can get this. And it is about practice and it is about doing it and keeping going. And it's, I'm sure we all have memories of that tipping point where all of a sudden something clicked. And,
for sure.
But you know, he's not Steve Vai. He's a 9-year-old kid who's just figured out his first kind of little solo piece on an electric guitar. But to witness that was wonderful. I've gone down a massive tangent. You asked me if I'd rearranged any of my guitars. The answer to your actual question, buddy, is yes, because now he's ready for a full-size guitar. Is the other thing I realised while I was watching him play on this tiny thing. He's grown quickly and I hadn't realised it. And so he's been coming into this room and politely asking if he can try different guitars. So I've been like, yeah, you can. And he's got the right kind of philosophy around looking after the instrument and respecting the instrument. And I'm like, yeah, which one would you like to try? So he points to them and he sits on the sofa and I pull them down for him and he tries them out.
That is so cool.
It's kind of like, yeah, so they've all got a little bit rearranged behind me as he's trying different stuff out.
Has he got any favourites?
Well, his favourite now, obviously, is the one that I bought for myself from the London Guitar Show that we went to. And then he fell in love with that one. I don't know if I told you this. He saw that guitar before Christmas. Oh, right. He saw me setting it up and stringing it up and trying it. And he went, that's the coolest guitar I've ever seen. Wow. And he'd just gone and watched the Black Panther movie with his brother and mum. They had like a day off or something, or I was gigging or something, and I hadn't gone to go and see it, but they've just went and watched the new Black Panther film. And he said if Black Panther had a guitar, that's the guitar he'd have, because it's like this beautifully sleek, curvy, like Les Paul with EMG pickups, and it's kind of and the kind of exposed wood binding and everything.
Such a great description. If that's the guitar, it is the guitar Black Panther would have. Absolutely,
it literally is. Yeah. So he nicknamed the guitar Black Panther. While I was setting it up, he was just like, that guitar has a name, it's the Black Panther. I'm like, that is so Spinal Tap, dude. That's amazing. So then I think I told you before Christmas, right? The thought occurred to me that actually I've got too many guitars. This is a lovely guitar. I don't need any more guitars. And actually, what am I going to do? Go out and buy another full-size guitar because he's ready for a full size, or give him this one that he's already kind of tentatively fallen in love with. So I blagged him a little bit and basically told him it was a customer's guitar that I was repairing for them, and it promptly went away after a couple of days into the recesses of a wardrobe upstairs. And as far as he knew, the Black Panther was no more. And to his delight, on Christmas Day a few weeks later, his Christmas present from me, not from Father Christmas. His Christmas present from me was the Black Panther, and his little face was made up. So yeah, he's been jamming on that non-stop since.
Fantastic! So happy for him.
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure I can hear the opening intro to Sweet Child of Mine anymore ever again. Ever.
Oh, is it going round quite a lot? Is it?
That's literally like what I hear. I mean, he only has like about 10 licks in his head now from memory. So the intro to Sweet Child of Mine, Smoke on the Water, Wild Thing, just all the classics. So I'm going to have a word with Matt Lake and go, right, he's playing a lot now. Can you get some more
repertoire up a little bit?
Get the repertoire up, because but I can't say to him, turn it down.
No.
Rules that I will never say that because I'm trying to encourage him. Stop playing guitar, turn it down, play something else. But it's just like, if he disappears off to his room and starts noodling away, I'm just like, go for it. Sounds great.
You're just going to have to buy yourself some earplugs or something, aren't you?
Or I could just jack a set of headphones into his little Line 6 amp that he's got, because I think there's a headphone out on it, and just go, here, look, this will help you practice better.
Yeah.
Chuck your headphones on and
That's a good idea.
Off you go.
It's a good idea.
So no new guitars other than there's a Tanglewood acoustic sitting there on the sofa, which is a customer's guitar that needs some TLC. So that one's going to get set up later today, hopefully, and then
keeping my eyes out for a Tanglewood acoustic. Actually, I used to have one. A Tanglewood Earth 200. Sorry to interrupt this conversation. However, if you've made it this far, you should definitely subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast app. Go and do that now, then come right back. Welcome back. Which was a beautiful solid body, not solid body, but solid wood acoustic guitar I used to have, and sold it actually before Lucy and I got married, just to kind of get rid of some stuff. And I really miss that acoustic. It's one that I keep an eye out for. There's always one or two being sold, but I kind of feel like I would recognise mine if I ever saw it. So
nice. Hey, that's weird when that happens. I saw on eBay over Christmas a guitar that I once owned and repaired and sold that someone else was now selling on through eBay, and I was like, "That's my guitar." And I was like, "Is it my guitar?" Because you think, well, there's thousands of them, right? But I'd done some repairs to some of the lacquer and finish. Okay. Which were near on invisible, but if you looked at it in the right light, you could kind of just see where some repairs had been done on it. And even though the seller wasn't declaring those because they were nearly invisible, I could see them because it was my work and I repaired it, and I could just see the very faint witness lines around where I'd repaired the lacquer. And I know that guitar. Yeah.
So what did you get? Did you get anything nice for Christmas? Anything
I did.
Interesting?
I did. I don't normally get relegated to dad presents like chocolate-covered Brazil nuts and a pair of socks and the obligatory kind of underpants, men's wash bag filled with toiletries that will last me the whole year, so I don't need to buy anything like that. Yeah. But this year, these two little puppies arrived from Father Christmas for me.
Man, that's awesome. That's all you need, isn't it?
Well, I haven't tried them yet. I've got to put them on the board this week and give them a go. So,
for the benefit of the listeners.
For the benefit of the listeners, two pedals, both recommended, or certainly you pointed me in the direction of these, and I thought I've got to give these a go. So first is, we need to get some sort of sponsorship and kind of royalties on this, because I think this might be the single most mentioned pedal that we've ever had on the Guitar Smarts podcast, right? Yeah. From both of us.
Mainly because I don't shut up about it when we're talking about pedals. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never gigged with one. I think I might have tried your one briefly when you had one on your board, but it's the TC Electronics Spark Mini Booster.
Yeah.
Which is going to go onto the board as a direct replacement for my Moore Pure Boost, which has served me beautifully well for, God knows, 10 years now, maybe. Mm-hmm. And it's the same footprint as the Moore Pure Boost. I think the Moore pedal, obviously Moore are a cheaper brand, but they're built really well. Same kind of metal casing to their pedals. And the Moore one is, I think, supposed to be like a replica of like the Katana Clean Boost or whatever that. Yeah. So, and the thing I like about the Moore one is it's totally transparent. It doesn't color your sound at all. It just is a 20 dB, up to 20 dB boost, depending on where you set the level. Yeah. And it also has bass and treble, which is quite useful. So I use it for kicking in solos, where I cut the bass a little bit to stop it getting muddy, and I give it a little bit of a treble boost, not to make it shrill, but just to help cut through the mix a little bit. And like a treble booster pedal would be used, and I just tap on and tap off for that for guitar solos. But this TC Electronic Spark Mini Boost has got the same 20 dB analog circuit, one knob, so no bass and treble on it. So the mix is the mix, which I'm sure will be absolutely fine. But nice and simple. But the thing that I'm obviously intrigued about and attracted to is this momentary function that you keep telling me about on this, which is obviously if you stamp on it and stamp off of it, it works as a standard on-off, engage, disengage. But if you press and hold it, right, it just keeps it on. And then when you lift, it goes off. So for just doing little drop-ins and little, crazy rock endings for numbers or whatever. It just punches in with that momentary function, which I'm quite intrigued by.
Yeah, but the other good thing about that pedal is because it's a programmed switch, and not like your standard pedal switch that you'd have that's just a physical component. Because it's programmed effectively to function off different edges. You get slightly different functionality. So, for example, the on of the pedal activates on the downward edge of the switching function. So if you think about what happens when you put your foot on the pedal, let's imagine you've got a 0 and then you put your foot on the pedal and that's a trigger, which gives an upward edge. And then it stays up as long as your foot's on the pedal. And then when you take your foot off the pedal, there's a downward edge. So you can imagine the trigger being this upward edge when your foot goes down and a downward edge. The on of the pedal is on the downward edge. And the reason why that's handy is because it means you can have your foot on the pedal for some things. Oh, sorry, I think the on comes on the upward edge instead, but it means you can have it senses your foot turning it on, whether you take your foot off the switch or not. Okay. So it'll turn it on. And if your foot's still on the switch, then obviously it does that momentary thing. But I think the off is on the downward edge of the switch, which means you can. Which means that you can turn the pedal on after a while. But let's say you want to turn the pedal off at the exact moment. You can then, after you've had the pedal on for a while, you can lean on the switch. It won't turn off until you've taken your foot off because it's waiting for that downward.
Okay,
see what I mean? So it's not like it's not like
click on, click off.
It's not doing everything on that upward trigger of the pedal. It's doing the on the upward trigger, but it's doing the off on the downward trigger at the end. Got you. So it's kind of
that's interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's right in what I'm saying, but that's handy again because it's not just about they've kind of programmed the switch to give you the most usability of the pedal. And I have found that handy before to be able to just kind of lean on it and play, and then know that as soon as I step away, it's going to just turn off. I don't have to kind of think about an action of stomping every time I'm doing an on or an off. It's handy to kind of lean on something. It's almost like having a volume pedal with a preset control that and you're leaning on the pedal and then you're leaning back kind of thing. So
I'm intrigued. I'm going to definitely have to have a play with that before my next gig.
Play around with the usability of it because it's unique because of that. It's definitely just as a boost, it's a transparent 20 dB. You probably won't feel too dissimilar to your Mua clean boost that you use at all.
I'm hoping not, because I like the sound of that. All I want is that ability to punch through, and I've literally, sought after it because of that momentary function, which I think in a live setting, particularly as one guitarist in some bands, where I need to keep the rhythm section down, but then punch in with little lead bits. I know there'll be people shouting and screaming at me, and you're absolutely right. That's what the volume controls are for on my guitar. And if I learned to play guitar properly, I wouldn't even need pedals. I'd just set everything to full out gain and then just roll things back for all my different sounds. I know this, but I'm lazy, and I'm of a generation that grew up hitting stuff on the floor. And so whilst I do, dear listener, I do use my tone controls avidly during a gig, and I do use my volume controls throughout a gig. I don't use them as my main kind of dynamic settings for lead, rhythm and soloing. I rely on pedals for that, and I use my volume controls on my guitar and tone controls to add nuances and to make finer adjustments in songs and to select certain tones for certain songs.
Yeah, plus you've got an amp that works particularly well as a platform for building sounds on with pedals as well, don't you? It's not necessarily like you've got an amp that works best as something that you set as almost like a lead tone and then wind back for different things. It's not, you're set up to work a particular way, so...
kind of.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. I feel justified now.
Well, you should. You should feel justified.
I love it. Plus, I love a pedal. It's good fun. They're addictive little things to buy.
Joe Bonamassa's got his pedal board back out for the last few years.
Has he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been playing through, what does he call it recently? The amp shanty. Because he plays through about 9 different amplifiers now.
Jeez,
he's still playing
ridiculous.
through. Yeah, because he's like playing through 2 Fender high power twins, and also I think through 2 Dumbles and also a Mesa Boogie, 2 Dumble combos, and then a Mesa Boogie like a rotary amp thing, and then and then a different Dumble 50-watt head and cab, and then he's still got the 4 Marshall Jubilees off stage.
Oh, come on.
Going through like a single 2B12 as stereo pairs kind of thing. It's just crazy. I mean, it's hilarious. In that last rig rundown he did say, I know this is obnoxious. I know this is completely obnoxious, but I don't care. Fair play to him. And then he's got the old pedal board out, and with tube screamers and everything on it.
And what is it that Clapton plays through these days?
Just a cable straight into a
straight into an old tweed amp. Set on maximum for everything. Set on seven for everything. Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason to that. I saw that in a rig rundown or something on YouTube. It just like set on 7 for everything. No accommodation for what the room acoustics might be or anything like that. He just likes the number 7, so he just puts everything on 7.
But it goes to show you how much Clapton is revered by, well, first of all, by Alexander Dumble, because Alexander Dumble doesn't make amps of his design for just anyone. He was very particular about who he chose to do stuff for. And then those people would have a Dumble amplifier. Whereas Clapton's amps were standard Fender Bandmaster designs that he got Dumble to build. So they were not even Dumble amp. Dumble was happy to build him off-the-shelf Fender amps. So they're not even like, yes, Clapton, I will make you whatever you like. It's not even going to be a Dumble. But I, Mr. Dumble, will make you whatever else.
Yeah. It's like everyone has a price, right? It's like the old indecent proposal film. I don't know why my head's gone this way. I mean, but everyone has a price, right? I mean, that film's dated badly, really, at least from an inflationary point of view, because £1 million to do that probably isn't enough, or $1 million. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't know.
But it's kind of like Dumble going, "I will only do things my way." And then it's like, well, but what if Clapton asked you?
Yeah, or Clapton's
all right,
way.
Fine.
I will do it my way or Clapton's way.
That's it. Everyone has a price, and Dumble's price was, if Clapton asked, then fine.
Then I'll do whatever he wants. If he wants me to make him a PV Bandit, I will make him a PV Bandit.
I will do it. It's Clapton. If you or I asked, I think the answer would be an emphatic laugh in the face. Yeah. I don't know how we got here, but it's confusing. Oh yeah, second pedal.
Oh yeah, of course.
Never tried one. Again, this is I'm doing this a lot this year with pedals, and I would never advise doing this with guitars. Try them before you buy them. But pedals, I think you can have a bit of fun with and just kind of lose yourself a bit in the marketing behind them, or what they say on the blogs and the forums, or the legends behind them, and just go for it and see if it works on your board. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes these pedals sound great in isolation, but then finding the place that they work on your board, it can be really easy, and they just slot in and you go, that's amazing. Or you can just go, for some reason it doesn't work well on my board. But the second pedal is the Boss DS1, the classic original pedal, which I've never owned one, but I've got a huge love of Boss pedals. The Blues Driver was a massive feature on my board for many years. Great pedal. Coloured in its sound. I wouldn't say it's a transparent pedal, and I don't think this one is either, but there's a huge range of tones from it, and I quite fancied gigging this one and giving it a go. It's going to replace, let's see if it can, it's going to replace, for the next couple of gigs, my STO way huge pedal, which is a vastly more expensive pedal and arguably a better pedal, certainly on paper, because it kind of is a model of the Noble Overdrive, isn't it? And I really have grown to like that pedal, the way huge. It's but I don't know. You sent me a link to this pedal before Christmas, the DS1, and said, "Mate, have you ever tried one of these? It's a classic, and we forgotten about this pedal because it's just such a household name." And I think I have. So I'm going to give this one a go for the next couple of gigs as my main crunch dirt tone. Not my main lead tone, but yeah, let's give it a go. See what happens.
Yeah, well, I was intrigued by, there was a YouTube video by Rhett Shull, who he was doing a video on the DS1.
That's right.
And he was basically saying the same thing. Like it's like how is it possible that we all talk about the Tube Screamer so much when there's a pedal like this that's still around for the same money, if not less money, you know? And he did a fantastic demo of the range of sounds you can get from it. You know, incredible tone stack on it. You know, the variety of sounds that you can get out of it from altering the gain, level, and tone is just huge. And you compare that to something like a Tube Screamer that really is a one-trick pony. You know, you're either using it to drive a scooped Fender amp, you know, Tube Screamer, or you're using it in metal to tighten the low end. That's basically the two uses of the Tube Screamer. You know, and arguably he's right in saying that it's a completely overrated pedal, the Tube Screamer, whereas you've got something like the DS1 that can do the Tube Screamer thing. It can do a million other things as long as you tweak it. It's just, it takes a little bit of effort to tweak, I think, was his point, is you have to spend time with it to really make it work for what you want. But, I mean, his review was really compelling in terms of, you know, how versatile a pedal it is and how good he got it sounding. So I reckon you'll have some success with it on your board, mate.
I think so.
I do.
Well, only because I kind of relate to that narrative around the Tube Screamer. I think the Tube Screamer is a great pedal, and I've got a lovely 808, is it? Tube Screamer, and a couple of different Tube Screamer clones sitting over there, and they're great, but in certain situations, but similarly in other situations, I've found them really just not being able to dial in the right tone. So I kind of found myself agreeing with everything that he was saying about the Tube Screamer, which is obviously a monster pedal, but kind of then convinced me that, well, if he's got a similar view on the Tube Screamer that I have, and he's saying that this pedal is his better alternative and a better toolkit for creating a different variety and tonal palette, then it's got to be worth a go. And it's Boss, so it's built like a tank. It's a wicked bright orange color, which I really love. That is. I don't think that has any effect on the tone, but time will tell whether I think orange adds extra sustain. Maybe, I don't know. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, they're buffered, aren't they? The Boss pedals, which is never a bad thing when you're running a pedal board with several dozen pedals on it, like I have. So I think the buffer on the board will just help push things through a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested. I'm looking forward to hearing have you got a gig coming up as well soon?
I've got a couple of weeks break. So I think my first gig is on the 21st of January. So yeah, I've got a couple of weeks to my first gig. So some time to get some practice in and get some New Year's resolutions on the go and start forming some good habits for the year before I just dive straight back into gigging and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll let you know. In a couple of weeks. But I must set some time aside and properly try these out on the board before I use them in anger in a gig.
Now, we wanted to talk today a little bit about some like good habits that, not necessarily resolutions, just some good habits that we want to try and enforce for ourselves, I think, going forward. But one of the first habits I think that probably you're addressing is the fact that you almost keep buying guitars.
Well, these pedals and guitars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So tell me, did you tell me in a message just recently before we had this that you almost bought some guitars as well?
Oh man. Oh, these are long stories. These are like an entire I can't witter on about all these in detail because they're too long a story. But suffice to say, like if somebody else had told me these stories that they were embarking on around buying a guitar, I would have just said to them, "Stop! What are you doing?" Yeah. And yet I found myself against all my best judgment, certainly on one of these.
Was this the Tokai? The potential.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So
I call.
Well, it wasn't right. Nothing bad happened, but I don't know. Do you ever find yourself going so far down a route that you kind of think, well, I've gone this far now, so I might as well see it through? And that's kind of what happened with this one. Like everyone in my circle that's into guitars and stuff, and I certainly know you do this, we like to window shop, right? So we find ourselves on eBay. We find out, there you go. The amount of links you send me from guitar or Reverb or whatever. We do the same backwards and forwards, and I've got other mates that I do it with as well.
Basically, I always send you something that's basically along the lines of, I'm not buying this, but this is a bargain.
But you should. But you should buy this. But you should buy this. If I were you, you should buy this. So anyway, I was up late one night looking at guitars and stuff, and the drummer in the fantastic drummer in my in the covers band that I play in, the Hot Fuzz, he's also a guitar player and loves collecting and buying guitars and stuff, and we're kind of into similar guitars. So I know a couple of guitars that he's always hankering and looking out for, and similarly, he knows what I like. So we'll often send each other stuff as well, going, have you seen this one? I think this is your guitar. Anyway, I've been gigging these Tokai Les Pauls for the last couple of years now, and hugely rate them. And these ones are made in China ones, so not even the full fat made in Japan versions, but the made in China ones. And I found two really, really beautiful examples of the made in China ones. Then proceeded to rip out the guts of them and do a full, custom rewire on them with nicer pots, nicer wiring, nicer switching, and better pickups. Gave them all a beautiful fret dress and setup. And to my mind, they are just stunning instruments now. They are beautiful. But I've been looking recently for a made in Japan one, because arguably they are better than what Gibson can produce in some instances. The Japanese make phenomenal guitars at every price point. At the more premium end of what the Japanese can do, it's absolutely sensational and can rival anything coming out of the big American factories. So I've always, so more recently I've been looking at Tokai Les Pauls and wanting to get hold of one of those. They probably go on the used market now in the UK. Brand new, they go for about 1,500 to 1,800 quid brand new. So you're already saving $1,000, $1,000, pounds off the price of a standard entry level Gibson. Right, already. If you don't mind it not saying Gibson on the headstock, which I don't, I'm more worried about the shape of the headstock than what it says on the headstock. And Tokai copy the open book shape of the Gibson headstock perfectly, which to me is the right shape. Don't care that it doesn't say Gibson. In fact, quite like it sometimes when it doesn't. So anyway, I found this beautiful looking Tokai, in inverted commas, Les Paul on eBay that this guy was selling. Lived about an hour and a half drive from me. And this is not me dissing this seller or bad mouthing him. He was incredibly responsive, incredibly courteous. A little bit of a vague story around the guitar, which kind of intrigued me more than anything. But he was selling this Tokai Les Paul for about £400. For $450 something like that, which is immediately like at least half of what it's worth. Mint condition, right? Completely mint condition. It had been professionally. I don't really care about this. I was more interested in the fact that it was a Japanese Tokai Les Paul, but he had it professionally rebadged on the headstock to Gibson. So refinished, resprayed, new decal, new screening work over the top to say Les Paul rather than Love Rock or whatever it said before. And it looked reasonably well done from the photos that I could see. But I was just like, well, if this is what it is, that's a lot of guitar for 400. A lot of guitar. Yeah. It should be way more than that. Yeah. And it's in mint condition. So I thought, okay, I'll have a punt on this. So then the communications went backwards and forwards. And then I was adamant I wanted to try the guitar and see it before paying for it. And he was kind of cool with it, but we were trying to find a day to meet up and where we could meet. Anyway, we ended up deciding that we were going to meet in like the early hours of the morning in some pub car park in the middle of nowhere and do this exchange. And I was going to try this guitar. And I kept getting him to send me more photographs of it. And then I was thinking, this can't be right. And there was a whole backstory with this guitar. Like, he was certain at various points that it was a Japanese Tokai. Then there was other points where he was telling me he wasn't quite sure. It's what he was told in the guitar shop that he bought it in South Africa. And I'm not saying that he was being disingenuous or dishonest. I'm just saying it didn't necessarily all stack up to the things that I could see on the guitar. And this is what you often find, right? People buy guitars with a story that's associated with them, and they relay that story to someone else because that's what they've been told. But there's certain things around, and bless him, he opened up the pickup cavities and showed me bits in there, because there's telltale signs that are different between a Gibson, Chinese-made Gibson knockoff versus a Japanese Tokai versus an Epiphone or whatever. There's certain things that the Japanese do with their Tokais that you can tell from some of like the pickup routing cavities and certain things exterior to the guitar, and little things. There was a lot of little red flags around this guitar that kept cropping up where I was like, it could be a Japanese Tokai, but it's unlikely. There was too many things that kept coming up that saying this is, when you add all of these things together, this is unlikely to be what he says it is. And it's been professionally rebadged and the headstock redone. So there's no real way of telling what this thing was originally other than to follow all these little indicators. And so in the end, I ended up pulling out of the deal. But it was like, it came within 24 hours of me driving to this pub car park in the middle of nowhere with a stack of cash to go and buy this random guitar that I'd never seen before. That didn't really stack up to what it was supposed to be, and then had a really weird backstory about being shipped over from South Africa and, then being rebadged and all of that. And then the other key red flag, this is the main thing probably, is it was being sold for about 50% less than what it should have been marketed at, right? So, yeah. Oh, and during the process of the conversations, eBay themselves took the listing down forcefully because it got reported as some sort of, somebody had reported the guitar and said this isn't what this. I don't know what actually. In truth, I don't know what it was reported for, but I can guess it was somebody reporting it as a counterfeit instrument or whatever. So anyway. Said I wasn't going to tell the full long story. And that is the shortened version, believe it or not. There was loads of messages that went backwards and forward.
You almost had a guitar safari, is what happened, isn't it? You almost.
I was more intrigued about going on this guitar safari to try and find this gem of a guitar for a cut down price with this really intriguing story behind it. Yeah. And having that, and my heart was letting me go on this journey with this weird story about this mystery South African Tokai that had found its way back and been rebadged, and it was all mint and pristine, but then certain things on it just weren't right. And I was thinking, if I was telling this story to someone else, if someone called me up and said, "Hey, Kiran, you know about guitars? I found this guitar, looks lovely, looks clean, it's an hour and a half's drive away, this is what they're asking for it, blah, blah, blah." I'd have looked at the photos and I've looked at the backstory and I've taken all those details collectively and gone, doesn't feel right, don't do it. Don't do it. Not a huge amount of money, but you could lose a lot of money on if it turned out to be like a Chinese Gibson or something.
Well, I remember you sending me some photos and thinking, I'm sure if it was a proper Japanese instrument, you'd be able to see like the maple cap and inside the pickup cavities. But I think the pickup cavities were painted black. And I thought, I don't think I've ever seen that on a high end instrument before. Where usually it's kind of, you can still see the actual finish that the top has. You can see that inside the cavities. And I was searching all the forums looking at this, and so the Korean, for a brief period of time, Tokai were making guitars out of Korea before they moved over to China, and so some of the Korean ones were painted black like this inside. So I was like, oh, well, maybe he's been sold a Korean Tokai rather than a Japanese Tokai. But then I found stuff saying, well, occasionally the Japanese did do this kind of screened black painting inside the pickup cavities, but then the routing didn't look quite right. And there was just like loads of little things that were like, yeah, I suppose it could be, but it on balance, it might not be. Anyway, came close, but then didn't. And now reflecting on the story, when all of those red flags present, it's just like, what was I even thinking? Yeah, you did the right thing for sure.
It's just not going to be that, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So, save your cash for when something else comes along that's clearly a much more suitable target for for a well-earned guitar safari.
Exactly. How about you, mate? Have you been seeing anything in the sales, or?
Oh yeah, of course. Lots
been
of stuff.
getting the urge to buy something over the Christmas break while you've been off work and had a bit of free time on your hands to peruse the guitar porn universe?
Yeah, I'm always having a look at things, but I've no real need for anything at the moment. I'd like to get at some point a better home acoustic guitar, but no major priority for that. I'm happy with what I've got at the moment. I feel like 2022 was really good for me, getting a couple of new guitars, and it was the first big year where I changed to an all digital rig, which I'm still really happy with. I don't really feel a massive need at the moment to get anything. But what I do want to do is there's some changes I want to make to what I do have. Like, for example, the Esquire that I have, I want to get a new pickup for that. Something a bit darker, a bit woodier. And I want to do some setting up of the guitars. And I know we always do this, right? We always have a subject for the podcast, and that subject tends to be what we talk about for about the last 10 minutes, right?
Because we're just catching up on
so much stuff that by the time we get around to the topic that's in the thumbnail, it's about the last 10 minutes of conversation. But one of my biggest habits that I want to get into better this year is looking after my guitars better.
Okay.
Because if I'm not gigging them, they go on the wall behind me and they stay there, and I will rarely change the strings, and I'll dust them down when I take them down, and if I'm not taking it down, they're getting neglected, really. So I've ordered strings for all my guitars. All the guitars are going to get restrung and just properly set up again at the beginning of this year. Even the bass guitar, I ordered a new set of strings for the bass guitar. It's got a broken tuner, so I've ordered a new tuning peg for it.
Cool.
So even that's just going to get a really good clean and a fret dress. I'm just going to get everything looking good, everything back to how it should be in terms of cleanliness and in terms of setup, and try and keep things that way as much as possible. And that's like a big habit that I want to address this year. And I know that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to redo our 8 steps. It was one of the first podcasts we did.
It was, steps, it was a couple of years ago now, wasn't it?
That's right.
I'll come up with another or a build on that then, so that we can kind of refresh our memories, and maybe we'll record that in the next couple of weeks. So we'll do some essential steps of guitar maintenance again. The 8 steps episode is still there and available to listen to, and there's some great tips in that. But maybe I'll take that episode and build on it and come up with a few more, because we deliberately stuck those 8 steps as these are the basics that every guitarist should know how to do.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll also add in now a couple of more intermediate steps, because I know we've got a whole range of technical kind of capabilities of people that listen to the show. So there are a few steps that I wanted to talk about in that last episode, but felt that they were just perhaps a little bit more involved as maintenance steps. You would probably be better off waiting until you got a certain skill set to do. So maybe we'll add some to that. And to be honest, mate, that'd be a good conversation for you and I to have, because you've gone through the 8 steps several times on your guitars since we did that episode 2 years ago. So I think you're ready to do some additional kind of steps on guitar maintenance yourself now.
For sure. So, there's some jobs I know some of my guitars need doing that are beyond those 8 steps that I feel confident enough to do them if I've got the right tools. So be good to talk about those things.
All right,
that's a big habit for me that I think everyone should try and address this year is, and I'm sure everyone does this anyway, but looking after the instruments, keeping them set up. Because it surprises me how quickly they can change just from temperature and day to day. They're constantly under tension. You think about your guitars constantly in this state of what you think is equilibrium, between the strings and the neck and things like that. But it's probably not under an equilibrium. Over time, it's probably pulling one way or the other, and this and that. And as temperature changes, that the wood's going to react differently. So you've got this active organic thing changing day by day. And after a few months, we just got to, check those measurements again, check the relief, check the height of the strings at certain positions, and just make sure that the guitar's kind of, as it should be.
For sure.
And I guess one of the keys to that is kind of when you do have your guitar set up and you love how it feels, take some measurements, right? Take some measurements and record them and say, right, these are the measurements that my guitar exhibits, when it's set up as I want it to. And then after a while, keep, it's kind of like, checking the amount of air pressure you've got in your tires, and it's all that stuff, isn't it? It's
of course it is, man. You wouldn't expect to to just do no maintenance to your car and for it to drive like it did out of the showroom,
of course,
forevermore, right? And guitars are no different. I mean, at the extreme of it, it's why professional, successful musicians that go out every night playing have guitar techs, right? Otherwise you don't need an onstage guitar tech, right? Guitars would just stay the same, but they don't. That's the extreme of it. But for jobbing, like weekend warriors or just hobby guitarists like ourselves, or even kind of more serious, professional guitarists, but that aren't like gigging stadiums every night and don't have a dedicated guitar tech, your guitar will move and will fluctuate. Even if, and we know that happens with temperature and kind of like just playing the guitar and moving components on the guitar itself and fret wear and all of those kind of different things. But if all of those things stayed constant, right? Even just having your guitar hung up on the wall, it would move because of the way in which the strings age, right? The strings themselves age over time. And even though it's a minute difference, they start to pull on the neck in a different way as those strings age. So you could set up a guitar and keep it in like a hermetically sealed room with constant temperature and all of that, and just leave it hung up on the wall for a year, and the setup will be different when you pull it down a year later, just because those strings have aged and stretched in a different way. And as strings get older, they don't pull in the same way. So yeah, man. Anyway, we'll definitely let's do some of those steps next week. We'll do a whole episode dedicated on that. So for those that are into the kind of more technical maintenance side of things, or just want to have a go at getting their gear up to tip-top shape, we'll do a whistle-stop tour of all the checklist of things that you should be doing, and maybe some of the tools that you need to buy as well. I don't think we covered that in enough detail last time, what tools you really need to do all of this. Because to your point, Matt, having the right tools to hand, and you don't need to go and spend thousands of pounds at StewMac or anywhere to do this. You can get some of these tools from, reasonably priced places now, and just having those will make the job infinitely easier than just opening up your kind of household toolbox and having a go with whatever's in there. That's not the way forward.
No,
but buy the proper stuff.
Get the proper stuff and do a proper job of it.
Yeah.
The other thing that and this is really important, I think, for everyone. Do you know, especially if you're like a guitar teacher, if you're a guitar teacher and you spend all day working with students on things that they're learning and stuff like that, I know there's a lot of enjoyment in that in itself, but something that I think we forget to do when we're at a certain point in our lives with guitar playing is to remember to play and to enjoy playing. To remember to just sit and play for enjoyment's sake, not always just to tweak the sounds of the board or just to practice songs for a gig and things like that. It's really important to sit down and say, well, I'm not going to practice. I'm just going to play for the enjoyment of playing right now and feed that part of my psyche, and remember to take something back from this instrument and just play along with something that I really love and just enjoy playing guitar. Not forgetting to do that is an important habit to make, I think.
It really is.
I think that'll feed into other things as well when you do practice or try and get better at other things, is that, you're not going through a difficult process. You're getting yourself used to enjoying those moments where you play guitar again.
I need to do that. I need to do that.
I was going to say earlier on, when you were talking about your son going through this stage now where he's really picking things up quickly, I just thought, I'm so jealous of that. I remember that so well when I was a similar age to him, probably late. I mean, he's started quite early, isn't he? And
yeah, he is.
I think probably 13 or 14 when I was going through that stage where it just felt every day was just it felt like every day was like a doubling of what you could do. You know what I mean?
I
I'd listen to something and I'd just be like, after doing my homework or whatever, I'd be playing guitar and be like, yes, I can play that now. And then the next day, something new, I'd be like, yes, I can play that. It'd just be like one bar at a time. And I kind of don't have the opportunity to do that now because you know everything, but it's like you're at that end of the scale where it's kind of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm so jealous of him being at that point where you're looking up the mountain, kind of thinking, you know, it's a daunting mountain to climb, but it's great to have it in front of you to conquer, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm jealous. I'm jealous of that. So it's another thing that's important to sit and practice the process of enjoying playing for playing's sake. To remind yourself, you know, that's one of the main reasons you do it, and not just to get caught up all the time in, you know, looking after your instruments or practicing for gigs and things like that. Yeah, that's my danger. That's my blind spot now, and I'm sure is what led to. Do you remember I had that little incident of cramp during the middle of a gig last year? Yeah. And I felt it again in recent gigs. Really?
Yeah, not anywhere as acute as that particular episode, but I felt just once or twice a little twinge of it coming back. And I'm pretty certain it is because I'm just going from gig to gig and not playing enough during the week. And it's like, you know, going and running a marathon without doing any training in between and just rocking up on the day and doing a few stretches and then going, right, off we go full into this marathon. And then at some point, you know, your muscles go, this hurts and we haven't trained for this. And I've found myself and I don't gig frequently. I'm not a pro musician. I gig like 2 or 3 times a month. Yeah. But that means like between gigging at the weekend, sometimes there's 2 weeks where I don't pick up a guitar. Yeah, well, there you go. And then I go out for a full night and play like a 3-hour set of music. Yeah. Like as the only guitarist in the band. So I'm all over the place on the neck trying to play. And then my hands start complaining, going, this hurts. Why haven't you warmed up properly? Of course it hurts, yeah. Yeah, of course it hurts. That's it. You know. So yeah, I need to get into that routine of enjoying playing in those intervals, but also reminding myself that it's important because it's also helping me condition myself for gigs. A bit of match fitness, you know, maintaining. Yeah, it's a good shout. That's another good reason to do it. But do it because you enjoy it. That was the main philosophy of what I'm thinking as well. It's not just about the purpose of practice or keeping yourself match fit and stuff. It's remembering that when you do sit down and play for your enjoyment as well as you know, just, you know, play Sweet Child of Mine over and over again. Play it. If that's what puts a smile on your face, play it. Yeah, exactly. I'm laughing because there's two videos that I saw within the space of 24 hours on it might have been TikTok or Facebook or something, and they were so polar opposite in the impact that they had on me. And so the first one that I saw was a like a minute soundbite of Joe Satriani talking about the discipline of learning the guitar. And he was like an army drill sergeant. He was like, the guitar tells you what you need to learn, right? He's like, the first thing that I say to students when they rock up to a lesson with me is, do you know all the notes on the fretboard? And if they go, yeah, I think so. And I go, right, give me this note on this string. And they hesitate for a second. He's like, no, you don't know. Go away and learn it. And he's just like, then I speak to them. Do you know all the chords on the guitar? I know some. Do you know all of them? No? Well, there you go. That's what you've got to go and learn now. Do you know all the scales? And I was just like, wow, man, I love him as a guitar player. Yeah. I think he's a phenomenal guitar player and showman and all of that. And Surfing with the Alien was a seminal album in my youth. But I left watching that minute interview just going, I am in no way inspired to go and learn guitar now, because all it's doing is reminding me of all the things that I don't know. And he's right. I mean, he's not wrong in what he's saying. The guitar is telling me what I don't know, and he's telling me what I don't know. And he's saying, it's not a mystery. Go and invest the time and learn those things, and then you will be a better guitar player, right? Fine. Whatever. Okay, good. Then in the next 24 hours, a similar clip appeared of Steve Vai, right? Okay. Who is a guitar player I don't particularly gravitate towards. No. I admire him. His playing is insane. For the Love of God is a beautiful track, and the man is a wizard, right? But he's not someone whose guitar playing moves me in the way that others move me. But I think he's really charismatic, and I love the way he talks about guitar. And in that same 1 minute kind of time frame, he talked about learning the guitar, and he said there's different ways of like approaching the instrument, and fundamentally what it's about is being able to communicate what's in here, and he's pointing to his head, and what's in here, and he's pointing to his heart, and finding a way and facility to make that happen through your instrument, right? And he said for me, the way that I had to get to that route and that place is by being really academic with it. Yeah. Because that's the type of guitar player I am, and that's how I was able to find a way to get what was inside me out and verbalized through the guitar. He said, and I'm interested in it. And he said, that's why I'm super academic with it. I understand all the notes on the guitar. I know all the scales. I learned all the chords, and that's how I got to where I am. But he's like, that's not every guitarist. And he said, people shouldn't get hung up on that's the way how to be like a guitar player. He said, there's so many great guitarists, and he cites a few different names. I think he cited Bob Dylan as one. And, you know, in my head, I'm thinking like B.B. King and people like that who did have a technical facility on the guitar, right? But it wasn't, they didn't sit and agonize about learning all the modes and things in order to communicate what was in their head and their heart. And I thought that's a really interesting, like, parallel between those two guitar players who actually, I think Vi learnt from Satriani, didn't he? Wasn't Satriani Vi's teacher?
That's
for a
right,
while,
I think
something?
so. Yeah.
So it was quite interesting within the space of 24 hours to see those two sound bites and then gravitate much towards what Steve Vai was saying and be quite actually left cold with what Satriani was saying. And I know these were taken in isolation and out of context and all of that, but it kind of reinforces the point you were making, which is just play because you enjoy it and you want to communicate something rather than getting hung up that you don't know all the scales and modes.
It's definitely kind of, it's important. I completely see it from Steve Vai's point of view. I feel like I'm trying to be more academic with my playing as well, but this is exactly why I mentioned this good habit that I want to get into this year of playing for the enjoyment of playing guitars. I don't want to lose that. It's important to maintain, a sense of musical enjoyment regardless, you know, of whether I'm trying to break away from relying on a pentatonic scale shape to know where I should be playing. I'm trying to get to a point where I don't think about the scale shape or the scale type at all. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm thinking about, just if there's a melody already coming, to me in my head that I can go, there's less between it appearing in my head and it kind of happening on the fingerboard. Do you know what I mean? Less processing required. Of course. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to. But in the process of getting there, I don't want to lose the enjoyment of playing because I do still really enjoy just sitting down and jamming a blues and you know what I mean? And playing some Stevie Ray Vaughan licks and things like that.
Yeah,
those things will always hit the spot, regardless of where the origin of that is musically. So don't ever let go of that. And also the feeling of that and the joy of that should feed into, the things I'm trying to improve in my playing as well, So
yeah, I totally agree, man. And there's a halfway between that, right? And I think you helped me kind of see that with some of the lessons that you were trying to impart on me last year or the year before. And the thing that I'm going to take into this year, more in my practicing and in my live playing, is just looking to target certain notes over certain changes and keeping it as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
Because there is something that happens. There's a void like between the practicing and the theoretical stuff that I do at home, and then in a live setting where in the heat of a band mix and you're playing these solos and you're improvising, and then it's very easy to just like let your heart completely just take over and just blaze pentatonic stuff until the cows come home, and it all works and everyone loves it but I'm just trying to find that thing in the middle that allows me to still do the latter bit, which is enjoy myself in a live setting and not be too in my head with what I'm doing and work on the performance and still put on a good performance for somebody and not make it look like I'm thinking about what I'm playing, because no one wants to see that when they go and see a band. They want to see a band having a good time and jumping around and playing great music, right? And not hitting bum notes. But I just want to work on, at least in every kind of solo, just being more competent and conscious about the notes and when I'm targeting certain changes that are happening underneath. And just that, if I can work on that this year and get better at that, I'll have made some big strides forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great target. That's a great target to have. And the cool thing is you don't need to be playing complex music to be practicing this kind of stuff, you know.
Exactly.
Even if you're doing a blues, you know.
Yep.
The thing it didn't really occur to me until quite recently, you know, when you were growing up and learning to play a blues, often, you know, it'd be like it would be like A, D, and E7 would be the chords, right? You know, you'd be playing your A minor pentatonic, and it works over the whole thing, but it shouldn't work over the E7. You know, the E7 has got an A major 7 note in it. You know, that's the major third. You don't have that in the pentatonic, the A minor pentatonic. You know, so even a normal blues, you know, you should be thinking about what you do over the 5 chord different to the pentatonic scale you'd usually use. You can do it. So it's not even like it's complex music that you need to be playing to practice these things. It's the simplest of music that you can still practice these things. And the best thing to do, I think, for like that kind of thing is sit down on your acoustic guitar and try and see if you can solo over a blues. And make yourself hear the chord changes as you're soloing without having to play the chords as they change. Try and imply them somehow, you know.
Yes, that's exactly how I do it. That's what I was doing this week, as I was playing it wasn't a blues piece, but it was more kind of like a Spanish-inspired flamenco-y type piece, but not particularly complex in the chordal structure. So I was playing the rhythmic stuff, but then, you know how we as solo instrumentalists sometimes like to then embellish with little solo lead lines that would be there if you were playing as 2 guitarists, but you're holding down the basic chord changes, but you're also putting little lead flourishes in between as if you were playing about. So I was doing that, but then trying to make sure that those little lead bits that I were doing were targeting the changes that would have been happening on those chords as I was doing it. And I was just like, just this simple exercise in itself is keeping that whole pace and tonality of that song going without needing to have it on a backing track. And I was just like, this is the things that I need to get better at.
Yeah, there we go, dude. Well,
hey man, there we go.
Those are the things. The first one of 2023. What a pleasure.
Yeah, man. What a pleasure, mate. What a pleasure. So onwards with those new habits, and you know, hope you have many more guitar safaris. Yes, mate. With you, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, mate, let's hope we have a good couple of weeks, and then we'll get back together for another one and enjoy it.
Absolutely, mate.
Have a good January, mate. I mean, I'll speak to
and you. Look after yourself. I'll speak to you soon, buddy. Feel better soon, okay?
Will do. All the best, mate. Speak soon.
All right.
Ta-da.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. And once again, I hope you are having a good start to the new year. If you like what you hear, then remember there are 69 other episodes going back 2 years now that you can check out, where we talk about all kinds of things like the best budget guitar amps, easy steps to improving your tone, and our desert island guitar rigs. Go and enjoy them. Anyway, best wishes. See you next time on the Guitar Smarts podcast. Bye-bye.